What's up guys, welcome to a brand new video. So as per the video title, what we're going to be doing today is a full compression test on the V12 in the 850. So the reason I want to do compression tests is essentially because I plan to take the engine out, gearbox out, interior like I said in the last video, and do all my rust repairs on the chassis. And if the engine is out, that would be a prime opportunity to rebuild the engine if it's required. Now the engine itself has given me no reason to believe there's got low compression in any of the cylinders. I suppose this is more out of curiosity and obviously just to get a general picture of the overall health of the engine, the level of compression between the cylinders and how they relate to each other. So like I say, it's a good starting point. It gives you a good picture of how the engine is overall health-wise. If we've got good compression all around, a rebuild, it certainly wouldn't be on the cards. So what I've done is, as you can see, I've got my chart, which I've done out, indicators for all 12 cylinders, and then I might run this test hot, cold and wet. So cold is more likely what I'm going to do to start with, and then if any of the cylinders are reading low, I will then do a wet test, which is adding a small bit of oil into each cylinder, and that would give an indication whether it's a valve leak or whether it is a piston ring issue. So that's my plan. I've got my compression tester, which I just picked up. Hopefully it's a decent kit, and this will read out in PSI and bar what the level of compression is in each cylinder. So I obviously need to disconnect the ignition system and disconnect the fuel system, and then we can run our tests. So pretty excited, can't wait to see what the results are. Hopefully the engine is in good condition. Like I mentioned in previous videos, 133,000 miles is what the engine is sitting at. These engines do way more than that, so there shouldn't be any issues, fingers crossed. But let's see how it performs. Alrighty, so performing a compression test on any engine is a very straightforward process, and the M70 V12 is no different. But there are two concerns that we have whilst we're performing this test, and they are both a result of the sheer number of cylinders that we have to test. So if this was only a 3 or 4 or maybe a 6-cylinder engine, you can perform the test quite quickly. But the sheer amount of cylinders that we have means that we could potentially overexert our starter motor and then both our batteries as well. So you basically want to, I suppose, maximize the amount of time between each test, between each cylinder. And the way I'm going to do that is basically just to pull each plug, pull each lead, each plug, stick the tester in, perform the test, then reinstall the plug, reinstall the lead. So if I was to do 7-8 cranks on each cylinder in like 3, 4, 5 minutes, you're going to massively overexert the starter and we can potentially do damage to it. So we want to avoid that, and obviously we're going to run our batteries down very quickly too, so we want to avoid that also. So the first thing I need to do is pull both of these bad boys here. So there are 2 fuel pumps in the same housing, the same assembly. That's both fuses there, so that's our fuel supply killed essentially. Now I probably will crank this once or twice just to make sure that there's no fuel in it. And then we also want to disconnect each ignition coil. So we've got one there and one there. Each one of these controls a bank of its own, so 6 cylinders. And I'm also going to disconnect the actual supply to each ignition coil and make sure they're wrapped up in electrical tape, make sure they aren't grinding off anything. So that would be our fuel disconnected and our ignition disconnected. So let's get started. These leads here are notoriously difficult to disconnect. That's one. And then I want to disconnect both the supplies. And that's them out of the way. And we have the opposite side disconnected too. Now I'm just going to give it a quick crank and make sure everything turns over okay. Okay, sounds good. I showed you guys this diagram at the very start of the video, so I've decided I'm going to start with cylinder number 7 because it's one of the most easily accessed cylinders, and it's located here, the front left side of the engine. As you can see, the cylinder numbers progress backwards, 7, 8, 9 through 12 as it goes backwards, back towards the firewall essentially. So like I say, easily accessed. So I might as well start one of the easier ones. And optimal compression, this is the official tech spec. We're looking for anywhere from 142 to 170. Closer to 170 obviously the better. So yeah, let's get started, see what kind of results we get. Now these leads are notoriously difficult to get off. You just have to pull quite firmly on them and they do pop, but let's give it a go. There we go, it's actually not too bad. I have my spark plug socket with the rubber boot inserted. Let's get this bad boy out. Spark plug number 7. I just connected the correct size spark plug end, so this will go straight into the spark plug hole, and then we can attach our gauge to the opposite end. There we go. And we can connect our dial at the opposite end. All right, here we go. Okay, that's a great reading. What have we got? 160, 170, pretty much on the nose, 170. Just off camera, I actually cranked that 3-4 more times just to make sure I got maximum compression, and it pretty much stayed the same. But for future ones, I'm going to crank it a little bit more. So we were reading 170 on that. Very pleased with that. And we can pop our plug back in. And let's torque them to spec. On to cylinder number 8. What have we got there? Even higher again, 173 I'm going to go with. 173. Boop. Boop. $180 again. So it was getting a bit late last night, but I got all 6 finished on the left side bank. Very happy with all these results. I'm going to move on to the right side bank now. Thankfully, all of these plugs are way more accessible than they are on the left hand side. I can even touch the back lead there with no trouble at all. So there's way more room on this side. Going to get started on this side, and hopefully we get similar results to the left side. Let's get going. Brilliant, so I have the last lead reinstalled. I have both my ignition coils reconnected, and I have both of my fuses for the fuel pumps reinstalled also. So let's see if she starts up without too much hassle. Well, that was absolutely effortless. Let's analyze these results. Okay, so crunch time. Let's take a look at these numbers. First of all, I think it's important to say I'm absolutely delighted with the results of the compression test. Like I said at the outset, the main objective was to ensure no cylinders are sitting way lower than others or any cylinders were underperforming. And I think it's pretty clear by looking at the numbers, everything is pretty much identical. So absolutely delighted with that. We essentially have a range here, an ideal range of 142 to 170 PSI. And my lowest reading here is 170 PSI. So the compression level of every cylinder is right up there, right at the top of factory spec. And this is a 30-year-old engine, 133,000 miles. So absolutely delighted with that result. I don't think I could be anything less than ecstatic about that. One strange anomaly that I've noticed is there's a slight difference between the left bank and the right bank. So cylinders 7 through 12 have a slightly lower compressor reading, maybe about 4% compared to the entire side, this side here. And what I put that down to, and it's something I didn't mention at the very start of the video, was I actually ran the engine for about 2 minutes or so just to get the oil circulating, because the engine hadn't actually run for about 2 or 3 weeks. So there was a small bit of heat generated. I could feel the heat coming off the exhaust manifold, even though I shut it off extremely quickly. But what that results in is a marginally hotter test on this side compared to a completely cold test with this side. Like I said, I left the car overnight on this bank and I tested it today stone cold, but this test was performed after running the car for about 2 minutes, and that results in slightly hotter air, basically in your intake and in your cylinders. That results in less dense air and slightly lower compressor rates, which is in line with what I'm reading online. So I've no doubt if I performed the test again, this entire left bank would have pretty much identical readings to this side. Now, there's no way to confirm that without doing the test again, but it's just kind of in line with what we're seeing with the numbers. Marginally lower results on this side compared to this entire right side. So I've no doubt doing this test again would result in pretty much completely linear, completely uniform result across the engine. So absolutely delighted with that. As I say, 30-year-old V12 M70, and it's right up there with what it was when I left the factory compression wise anyway. So I think I can call that nothing other than a complete success. Absolutely delighted with the result, and from this cursory inspection, no need for a rebuild. This thing is compressing just as I would expect and just as I would like. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. There's going to be a lot more content coming soon. This has brought me on the right track now in terms of how I'm going to proceed with the rest of the restoration. So yeah, more content extremely soon. See you later, guys.